Greetings and blessings. I want to talk to you guys today about some updates of things happening mentally, spiritually, and physically. And it all revolves around the word love. Um, and it came from the most oddest place, my trip to Costco. Now, one Costco that my wife and I go to that's close by the house is always very crowded and people are in a hurry and it's hard to get around and things like that. The other one is a little further and well worth going to that one, let me just say. So the one that we would go to that's close by the house, that's always crowded and people always in a hurry and whatnot. Well, the reason why I go to Costco with my wife while she's shopping is primarily for me to be able to walk in the walker because I can no longer walk long distances unless I have the walker, and potentially down the line there will be I will be in a full-time wheelchair, but for now I'm just blessed that I can get out and walk around with the walker. So with that being said, this Costco that we went to only a couple times with the walker, but I think it was the second time I went there that we had an overabundance of rudeness of people walking in front of me, uh, you know, just not wanting to have any conversations, just really self-absorbed selfishness that we saw. It gave me such a hurtful feeling for mankind in itself, and that's really ultimately where I was able to see when we went to the other one that's a little further, but this one was polar opposite, where people were friendly, they got out of your way. Now, let me just say this. I certainly don't expect everybody to get out of my way and all that stuff, but at least have some compassion and recognize that there's a handicapped person in your vicinity, right? But these people didn't. The first Costco we went to, they didn't even acknowledge. It was just really bad. It really put a bad distaste in my mouth for humanity. But again, about a week later, we went to the other Costco on the other side of town, and people were friendly. They got every way. They had conversations. The people that were working there, the people that give out the food and stuff, people were just so much more kind and gentle and compassionate, and treated me with respect. It was at that moment where I had a revelation, so to speak, of being able to receive the love of Christ. And throughout this years that I've been preaching, the gospel of love, I call it, where God loves everything. I've been so turned off by this mentality that God loves everything and He's just your best buddy. Now, I was completely opposed to that and still am, obviously. Um, but on the same side, I was able to really receive the agape love that that God has for us. That, 1 John 4, I think it is, where John says, God is love. And having been able to receive that gave me a new lens to look from today, where I'm not so dogmatic. And I mean, I was never a works based preacher, or legalist, but some people would have probably put me in that category because I was dogmatic on certain topics. But now, in seeing in having the I can't think of the word, the experience, I'll just call it. We've experienced some pretty traumatic things at the last place we attended for church, and they're more worried about their doctrine and their theology rather than actually walking with a literal dying brother, bearing his burden, and having compassion for that. They're more worried about doctrine than loving your brother, loving your neighbor. And so we've had the healing, I'll just say this, the physical healing that I pray for, and I know God can heal me physically right now. Ultimately, God is concerned about your heart, your spirit, your soul. He renews your soul. So therefore, the healing that's been taking place has been far greater than any physical healing that can take place. So he's really revealing to me. With that being said, I want to just read this. In John 15:13, Jesus says, greater love has no one than this, that someone laid down his life for his friends. And so knowing that I have this terminal diagnosis, I'm ultimately laying down my life for my friends, and there is no greater love than I can show you than for me to literally lay down my life. And I would certainly, I thought in my mind that, I would be some martyr, and God is a great, witness for Christ in this way. But ultimately, the Lord is giving me this illness because He trusts me, and the testing of my faith is being seen and felt by those around me. And I'm seeing such wonderful answered prayer, more than I could ever put into words. But ultimately, there's no greater love than a man laid down his life for his friends. So we have to be cautious and observant in looking around our surroundings, and love our neighbor as ourselves. Like, we already love ourselves. We're so self-absorbed, so selfish, that we automatically already love ourselves. So if we can love our neighbor as we love ourselves, what a world we would live in, right? So with that being said, also in Matthew 24:12, Jesus says, and because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. So as the world gets darker and more of the evil starts to show itself, as lawlessness increases, we're seeing the love of many grow cold. And maybe this will give you an opportunity to observe and examine yourself, to the point we're saying we always concentrate so much on ourselves, but we don't know what the other person is going through. So we must have more compassion, more empathy, more love for others. So that was my revelation of really receiving that love. I actually started to weep inside the good Costco because of the great compassion and kindness that I was seeing. It was literally the polar opposite. So my goal now is to, like the old saying goes, you catch more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. And so that's led me to even be kinder and gentler and more compassionate to others around me, and able to see the hate and the literal self-absorbed selfishness that many have. But I haven't lost hope yet, because I know that the Lord is doing great things in these days, along with his judgment of people who have turned away and now looked at him for his kindness, for his goodness. So there will be his judgments with that. So this is your opportunity right now to really examine yourselves and look in the mirror and say, I'm happy with that person that's looking back at me in the mirror, and really able to show more compassion to others. With all that being said, I want to close out with reading something that Paul wrote to Timothy that we must understand is very critical for us to understand what's happening. And what Paul wrote about to Timothy 2,000 years ago, he said, "But understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty, for people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, pride, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness but denying its power. Avoid such people. So Paul's addressing what the church is going to look like in this time. So imagine if the church looks like what he's describing. Imagine what the normal people who don't know Christ will look like. So my point is that we must really show kindness and love to others and be a light of Christ. He said, be the salt and light of the earth. Now, think of what Jesus addresses in Matthew 24:12 when he says, because lawlessness will increase, the love of many will grow cold. So we're seeing this play out where people's hearts are growing colder and colder, and we have to be really grounded and rooted in the firm foundation of God, so that we are able to rise above, to conquer all of the adversity that's going to come to the Christians, the believers, because in the coming days, weeks, months, whatever, we have to realize that the world is getting much darker and much eviler, more evil. So the light shines the brightest in the darkness. One little flame of light. So be the light of Christ that shines in the darkness. I hope that this was a blessing to you, and that you can be a light in the darkness, and continue to love one another as you love yourself. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So with that being said, I say God bless. May the Lord be with you. May he strengthen you in all that you do, and be an encouragement and a light in the darkness. God bless. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.